Welcome back to our newly named podcast, the Perimena Podcast. I thought of it myself. I know. So anyway, today we're doing something that I've never done before. We're pulling back the curtain on a real Dutch test from someone who is honestly the last person that you would expect to have a hormonal imbalance. The one, the only. Jamie Filer. If you're not aware, I've done a previous episode with my good friend Jamie Filer. She is also in the health coaching space and specializes in lesbians with anxiety. Now, here's what makes this episode so incredible. Jamie is super fit. She's consistently, she eats well. She is really just like the definition of health and fitness. And because of that, she doesn't think that she has any real hormonal symptoms because honestly, she doesn't. She looks good. She feels good. She performs great. But when we ran her Dutch, we found that her hormones were telling a different story. So let's jump in. All right. So today I'm really excited to go through this with you because you don't look like you have all of these hormonal imbalances. You are a very fit and healthy person. And I think that in itself just goes to show that hormonal imbalances don't always present the way that you expect, right?
Yeah.
You don't gain a bunch of weight typically. That's not inevitable for every hormonal imbalance. And I think that that's something that we kind of have grown to believe is like you wear your hormonal imbalance. You have moon face, you are inflamed, you know? So I guess before we dive in here, I'm curious, did you have any symptoms? Like, what was the reason that you were curious about where your hormones were?
Honestly, it wasn't, I guess there was nothing outward facing and I didn't have any, like you said, there was no moon face. There was no inflammation. I wasn't gaining weight suddenly. I didn't suffer from brain fog. Yeah, nothing was popping up, but I went to do my routine lab work and there were discrepancies in terms of, testosterone versus free testosterone, DHEA. I think vitamin D was a little bit low. So I went to you and I said, I don't understand. If I have if testosterone is normal, why do I have so much free testosterone? Where is the disconnect? And you're like, it's not necessarily a hormone that's not functioning. It's a pathway. And then, because I'm not, in anything, whether it's marriage, business, or my physique, I'm not okay with good enough. Like there's always more optimal. There's never satisfied. So yeah, testosterone was good, but I want more optimal. DHEA is good, but give me more.
Yeah. Yeah. And so no sleep issues, no issues with your cycle, no mood issues, no libido issues. Of course, you don't have libido issues.
Other people have issues with my libido. My libido is not an issue.
No afternoon crash, no change in your weight, no challenges in building muscle.
I hope that you use the most jacked photo you can find of me for like the little thumbnail for this. No, if you can't see me, I have a defined jawline. I'm quite fit. Yeah. My libido's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I mean, we can beat this dead horse, but like literally nothing is wrong with me.
So you're
But
perfect.
everything is wrong. Yeah.
Right. So one last symptom that I am curious about, because you specialize in anxious lesbians and coaching them because of your own anxiety, have you been struggling with anxiety or irritability?
I forgot about that one. Okay, yeah. Yes. Yes. Okay. Yes and no. My anxiety has gotten a lot better. I mean, again, shout out to Filer Fitness, but it's great. I'm a little bit irritable in and around my cycle, but like maybe 24 to 36 hours before, and then it hits and then I'm good. What would happen is that I almost wouldn't know that I was feeling stressed or anxious until I got eczema, my dandruff got out of control. So there were almost like physiological signs that you could just say, well, I mean, it's getting colder. Like, your scalp is drying out. But bones and joints would start to hurt. I got hit with gout. Like I'm 38 years old and I got hit with gout in April. So there were physiological or like external markers of stress and anxiety that I wasn't feeling.
That makes me think that we should do another round of lab work and do a GI map and have you then try to get your poop together. Keep that. You can't keep that on the kitchen counter. I think you have to keep it in the freezer.
Katie, thanks you.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay,
Yeah.
but that is interesting. So you have symptoms. You're just the kind of person that when you have a symptom, it doesn't disrupt your whole life. You still continue with your routines and your healthy lifestyle. And I think that that's why you're not experiencing more symptoms that are like blocking you from your regular day-to-day life. So speaking of your lifestyle, walk us through like what's your sleep hygiene looking like?
Yeah. Okay. So we'll start with the morning. I get up naturally. Okay. So this is sleep hygiene prior to your recommendations,
Okay,
correct? Because
good.
I have
Yeah.
changed things up. Yeah. So I would wake up without an alarm anywhere between 6 and 6:30. 6:45 at the latest. Go make breakfast, which is always the same. It's overnight oats, peanut butter. I take a joint supplement, vitamin C, and then I play. It's called Wordle. I play Wordle on my phone and I do something called the connections. And then often I'll do a crossword. And then I'll take the dogs out on a walk and catch up on messages or reels, come back from that dog walk, feed them, sometimes get into work mode, sometimes do some yoga, wake Katie up at 7:30. And then that's about like an hour morning routine. Maybe go to the gym, who knows? But like then my day starts. In the evening, typically turn off TV about an hour before we go to bed, so maybe 8 or 8:30. Sometimes we do a crossword together, Katie and I. Sometimes we just debrief about our day. About 15 to 20 minutes after that, I'll walk the dogs for their nighttime routine, brush my teeth, take a shower, take magnesium before bed. Creatures of habit make something called creature sleep, and then read a little bit and go to bed by 9:30.
So you have a solid routine. That is bulletproof.
It's
And
pretty dialed.
yeah, it's pretty dialed in. And so that just again goes back to it's so surprising that there are some things that are off.
Yeah.
How would you rate your stress level? Like 10 being you're at max capacity burnout.
Oh gosh, I mean, it's like October was a rough month for work, so maybe average for October was 6 to 7, but November it was brought back down again. We went on a lot of trips, we hung out with a lot of friends. I'd say it was averaging 3 to 4 maybe. And then December, I mean, so far we're off to a really strong start. Again, 2 to 3. I don't know. Yeah, stress is not hitting me. I don't feel like I'm on the edge of burnout. I don't, I had a sales call right before this. I didn't dread it. I have one at 5 p.m. I'm looking forward to it. That doesn't bother me.
Yeah. Okay, good. And then what's your diet like, including caffeine and alcohol intake?
No alcohol intake. I just don't like the taste. My caffeine, I have a cup of coffee in the morning, first from the Nespresso, and then I'll either have an energy drink maybe 2 days a week or a Diet Coke the other days. So I guess like the other 5 days. So 7 days a week. So I don't know, whatever that totals, maybe a max 200, 250, depending on whether I have the energy drink or not. Diet is clean and very limited processed foods. I'd say the most processed thing I eat is either a bagel or some sourdough every day. I don't typically do bars. I do one shake per day plus half a scoop of whey in the creamy that I have every night. But yeah, I eat relatively clean and I track my macros.
Yeah. And you're training very, very consistently with proper recovery, mobility, steps, all of that,
Yeah, I
right?
guess if there was one thing, like I train hard. I don't RPE 7. I don't RPE under 7 or 8 any day that I'm training. I do have days off for sure. And then I have other days where I'm only doing zone 2 cardio. So my heart rate doesn't really go above 130. But when I lift or do high rocks or CrossFit, there's nothing under a 7 or 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is what makes your Dutch test so fascinating because based on the symptoms that you don't have, no one would ever guess that your Dutch test is any less perfect than your physique and
Yeah.
your sleep hygiene and your routine. So let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen here. First, let's just start with your sex hormones. So, estrogen is right where it should be. Actually, it's even better considering your age because you are entering that perimenopausal age range, but it looks really good. You're right here, nice and healthy in the green. Your progesterone is still in the green, but we're noticing that it's starting to decline a little bit because, again, you are entering that perimenopause range. So, this is healthy and normal. And then over here, this is how your body is metabolizing your estrogen. Now, you're still within the normal range, but this is not what I would deem as optimal because you're rather high and you
Yeah.
are in the high range here. So, this means that your body is struggling to process your estrogen. You have a nice healthy amount, but your detox is struggling a little bit. And if you weren't such a perfect specimen of health, You would likely experience hot flashes, night sweats, dry skin, which kind of goes back to the eczema that you mentioned,
Yeah.
low energy, brain fog, depression, vaginal dryness, and pain during sex if you're having sex with a peepee.
Thanks for clearing that up.
Well, I mean, it's worth saying,
No,
right?
it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And you're not experiencing any of that with the exception of just minor bouts of like dry skin, right? Okay. So your progesterone metabolites are also a little low, and that puts you into a progesterone deficient pattern, which means that even though your progesterone is in a healthy range, again, your body is struggling to metabolize it. And that would result in anxiety, irritability, increased PMS symptoms, insomnia, spotting or a short luteal phase, and that feeling of wired but tired. Do any of those resonate with you?
I would say wired but tired. There are times, and just related to training, where I go into the workout and I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to be lucky to keep up with anybody." And then I smoke them, but it's like I don't feel like I'm moving quickly at all. My body just goes. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then I get to the end of my day. Like, it's really not until I would say 8. I don't experience a slump at 2 or 3, but at 8 p.m., I'm done. Like, that's it. That is my limit.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that makes sense because it kind of ties into the progesterone. But also, I think that it ties in with just your general lifestyle as well. Like you're doing a lot. Like you said, you train hard no matter what, you know? So it could just be like the natural pattern of your body's energy.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, here, so looking at your DHEA, it is like a little on the lower end, but here's where we're seeing the biggest drop is your
Yeah.
testosterone, right? And also your androgen metabolism is on the low range as well. So, typical symptoms of this would be again, low libido, poor recovery, low motivation, reduced stamina, muscle loss, depression, and fatigue. Now, the thing that I'm really curious about is once we implement everything that I put together for you, I want to retest in like 6 months.
Yeah.
And I think that it would also be really interesting if you're able to get your body fat and lean muscle mass tested around this
Yeah.
time and then have it retested again. Because I think that even though you have a lot of muscle, imagine how much more muscle you could have if these factors were actually in a healthy range,
Oh, right?
you know?
Wow.
Then
Wow.
you'll really be getting, like, not natty accusations,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's worth the price of admission.
right? So then let's come down to your cortisol. So your morning cortisol looks fantastic. This is like textbook. We really want it to be, a little bit in the lower range when you're waking up because you're waking up and then it should be creeping up. You should hit peak cortisol like mid-morning/midday. And then we're noticing like a steady decline towards bedtime. But we usually find that this decline is lower. See how
Yeah.
your decline is still high
Still
above the
here.
curve? That I think is relating to your wired but tired feeling that you mentioned before.
Yeah.
But morning cortisol looks great. I think that that has a lot to do with your routines, not just your morning routine, but your nightly routine, taking magnesium, trying to go to bed at the same time, having a good like wind down. That's helping your morning cortisol. Now, we need to help the evening cortisol come down a little bit more because we don't necessarily want it to like crack, but we want it to taper down lower. So that way you're getting more optimal night's sleep. Because when it's still in the red at bedtime, that means that it's impacting your sleep quality. And that is what's impacting your ability to build more muscle mass and recover in an optimal way.
Yeah. That makes sense.
For other people, for normal people, they would probably experience like an afternoon crash, emotional sensitivity, sugar cravings, specifically in the afternoon, low evening energy, like feeling around 5 o'clock, like you just can't do anything, and difficulty handling stress, specifically later in the day. Now, that's something that I was really curious to hear your perspective on. You notice that there's like certain tasks that you just can't do very well towards the end of the day because of how you're feeling energetically?
I mean, I would say I prefer my sales calls in the morning versus, yeah, I would say like my bullshit meter, my tolerance for objection or like wanting to handle objections or Honestly, just having longer conversations is not ideal later.
Yeah, because you're less stress resilient.
Okay,
So
here it is.
that makes a lot of sense. So now that we know this, I mean, you probably already do this, but you can like schedule your days a little differently so you're not doing those kinds of tasks at the end of the day because you're not as able to like handle stressful situations as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we also found that over here, your cortisol metabolism, you're way on the low range. That means that your body is really struggling to metabolize your cortisol, which this is actually really common. Usually, when we find that your body is struggling to metabolize estrogen, we also find that it struggles to metabolize cortisol.
Okay.
And this could mean that your body is actually recycling that cortisol in your body over and over again rather than getting rid of it. This is something that we're not really aware of. Your body isn't supposed to just like produce hormones and hold on to them. We need to actually expel them as well. And the the leading cause of having trouble like metabolizing these hormones is usually your liver health. So this is something that is not it's not often found in regular lab work because the regular lab work will just tell you this.
Just the snapshot of
They'll
like how
just tell
much
you this.
cortisol. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't show the metabolism. And that's usually where the problem lies. Like, imagine if you just had your hormones tested and you're like, estrogen's good, progesterone's good.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
giving you the whole picture. And that's usually why we hear everything's normal from our doctors because everything is normal based on what they're pulling. So we need to open up your detox pathways and focus on liver health. And that's going to help your body actually get rid of all this shit. Well, it's not shit, it's hormones. They're very important and healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, they're recycled stress hormones that won't leave your body.
Right. Yeah. So, and that's leading your body to think that it's in a high state of stress all the time, because it's recycling all of that cortisol. So, this will help you be able to sleep even better, be able to recover even better and build muscle mass quicker.
Cool.
So, then we can take a look down here, but there really wasn't too much. There wasn't too much more than really everything else was pretty normal, except again, this is highlighted because your body is just really struggling to detox.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of information that like you don't really understand when you're reading these labs either. But it's basically saying that like if your body is not able to detox this, it can actually do damage to your DNA. And that's why we don't want to just overlook poor markers on our lab work. Even if you're not experiencing symptoms, even if you're not super bloated, puffy, petite all the time, because it can harm you long term. And that's when it becomes irreversible.
That makes sense.
Based on all of this, what questions do you have?
Well, there was one more thing I wanted to address, and I found this interesting. It's that my dopamine level was lower than normal range. And again, like we've hung out, you pretty much hear from me every day. Would you assume that my dopamine was lower than, like, again, that was another thing where I was like, wait, what do you mean my dopamine is low? I felt like I don't jump out of planes, I don't use drugs consistently. Right? Like we know I use them recreationally, but not to excess at all. Like I don't feel like I'm chasing my dopamine high, but I feel really good all the time. So that also blew my mind that it was low.
I would be curious. Do you track this as regimented as you are? I would be curious what your drug use looked like the weeks leading up to taking your samples.
Oh, they weren't good. Okay, fine. Yeah, they were. So that's what that was. Okay.
That's a factor. That's a huge factor. And I'm glad that you brought that up though, because we don't take those things into account. If you are taking your Dutch test samples and maybe you're still drinking regularly, even a glass or two of wine, that can skew your results. And I don't even think it really highlights to not drink. It suggests like maybe don't drink too much because then you're going to dehydrate yourself and then you're going to have to drink more water in order to have an appropriate amount of pee for the samples.
Yeah.
But it is important, and I don't even think it matters what kind of drug.
Yeah.
Xanax
Because
comes
either
into
way, it's messing
here
with you.
too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you remember when you took the labs? Because we can go down that rabbit hole too.
Yeah. I took the labs. It was Monday. November 19th, I believe. No, I'm sorry. The night of the yeah, okay, so the night of the 19th, and then the week okay, so then the Thursday through the Sunday I was in Arizona partying. So 13 through 16 I was partying and there was drug use. And then the 7th through the 9th I was at EDC and there was drug use and partying.
Yeah, that right there, because
Yeah,
it stays in your system for a bit after, you
exactly.
know, and then you'll notice that like come down. So that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense, you
Okay. All
know.
right.
I didn't even look at that. Let's see. I want to go to page 3.
It was dopamine and there was one more, I believe two underneath it.
It's like cuz dopamine is HVA. You're at the low end of the normal range.
Yeah,
You
right.
know, the range starts at 3, you're at a 3.4. It's nothing to be, like, super alarmed about because that's one of those things that just fluctuates, especially when there's any kind of substance involved, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if you took these tests again and there was no drug use if you're normal, you
Right.
know? I think
Yeah.
you were just experiencing, like, the start of a crash. But I'm so glad that you brought that up because I didn't even think about that, you
Yeah.
know? And when we're taking these tests, we need to make sure that we factor in everything, like
Right. What about your
alcohol use,
lifestyle? Yeah.
cannabis, you know, even prescription stuff. A drug is a drug. So yeah, and then let's see, are there any notable mentions that were on the low end that you wanted to talk about? Your melatonin is on the low
Yeah.
end.
Oh, so that was it. That was it. It was dopamine and melatonin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the protocol that we put you on, what were your thoughts when you were going through that? Were you like, "Oh my god, this is so much stuff?"
No, because you broke it down into 3 phases, like a 1 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 12, I think. And I've already started changing my morning routine, and this is someone who's a creature of habit. So I think you said get sunlight, right upon waking. So first of all, now I wake up earlier. I've been waking up around 5 between 5:30, 5:45, so it's dark when I go outside, but now I walk the dogs first and get about 10 minutes of just like vitamin D in general. And I don't bring my phone with me. Then I make my breakfast, and that takes about 10 minutes. So I'm not looking at my phone for about 20 to 25 minutes before waking. You told me not to have caffeine after 12, so I don't do that anymore, which is trying to chug it at 11:40. Walking after meals is another, right? Like, so nothing you gave me is like, I'm not taking 18 pills a day. Oh, I had to add NAC and magnesium glycinate, not just the one in the like the powder that I take for sleep. But yeah, other than that, everything was so digestible, literally and physically, like emotionally, physically.
I'm
Yeah.
really glad to hear that because that's how it should be. You don't have to dramatically uproot your whole life in
Yeah.
order to get your body feeling better. You know, thankfully for you, you already had really solid routines in place. Then it was just a matter of adjusting the routine.
Yeah.
Super proud of you for not looking at your phone for almost a half an hour when you wake up. That's a
Thank
big
you.
deal.
It is a big deal, right? Because you get messages from me at like 5:45 and now
I
you know.
know.
Yeah.
Well, that's when I thought we were in different time zones. And now that I know we're in the same time zone, I'm like, Jamie, you don't have to message me first thing in the morning.
I understand. Yeah. Well, good news is I'm not messaging anyone. It's so great.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just incorporated some supplements. You were already taking a couple of the supplements. I'm curious, what magnesium were you taking beforehand?
It was just there's a magnesium that happens to be in the creatures of habit sleep powder. It's like a hot chocolate or a chocolate milk that you drink before bed that helps with sleep and recovery. I forget the type, but now we're both Katie and I are on magnesium glycinate.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because usually the magnesium that we tend to take is a citrate, and that does help like calm you,
Yeah.
and it'll help you have a nice healthy bowel movement in the morning. But the
Perfect.
glycine is actually like specifically for nervous system calming and improving your sleep quality, and it supports your progesterone pathways, which you specifically needed help with.
Yeah.
And then yeah, the things that I told you to do, they're pretty standard, you know. Basically just keep working out regularly, walking after meals because that supports your blood sugar and your insulin and stuff.
Right.
And then the caffeine, that's really just to help because that's probably why you were still high around dinner time when it comes to cortisol.
Yeah.
So what was your caffeine intake like in the afternoon?
Well, I would say it would be like a Diet Coke with dinner. So all I would do is, I mean, I pushed it. So I would have, if I was going to have an energy drink, I mean, that would still happen maybe around 2 or 3, and then if I were to have a Diet Coke, it would be with dinner, so about between 6 and 6:30, and now there's literally no caffeine after 12. Yeah.
I mean, a Diet Coke really isn't a huge deal,
Yeah.
but I mean,
It was it was wiring me though. Like when we went to we if we would go to a movie with friends that would start at 7 and I'd get one of those sodas, I wasn't going to bed till 12. I was still really sensitive to it.
yeah. Well, that makes sense, you know? So, and this isn't going to be like a forever thing, you know?
Yeah.
But a couple of these things, like if you can continue walking after meals, great. If you can continue not having caffeine after noon, great. But the main thing is that your supplements, the reason that we broke it up into phases is because we want to attack like one or two problems at a time.
Yeah.
And that way we can kind of cross it off our list and then move on to the next couple of problems. My internet connect. No, can you still hear me? I think I'm frozen.
We all frozen.
What the hell? Is it back now? Weird.
Hi.
Hey, I don't think so because it still says it's trying to reconnect, but like it says
Oh,
that my internet is, it says connected and
bad.
secured, but the Riverside app says trying to connect. This thing better have
Oh.
fucking recorded.
So, I mean, again, on my end, it still says it's recording, like it's at 33, 20, 22, 23, 24, and it says 99% upload. I wonder if there's a way if I leave. Actually, well, fuck. I don't know what to.
It says I
Can
can't
you
even
cancel
click
it?
stop recording.
Oh, that's interesting. It says this is your upload page. Keep it open to secure your recording. Upload smoothly. So I haven't closed that.
All right. So unfortunately, I lost internet. Okay. I'm just going to be honest. And we couldn't really wrap up the episode the way that I wanted to. But I hope that this episode opened your eyes to something really important. And that is hormonal imbalances don't have one look. It doesn't always look like gaining weight. It doesn't always look like moon face or just feeling absolutely miserable and depressed. Sometimes it looks like Jamie, a woman who has her shit together, eats well, trains hard, takes care of herself, but still has measurable hormonal patterns that are happening under the surface. The goal of this episode wasn't to scare you, though. It was to empower you because just like what Jamie said, even though she is doing all the things and doing them well, she can be doing them better. And that is our reality, especially if you are a busy business owner or entrepreneur listening to this as you're going through perimenopause. My girl, it can be easier. Everything gets easier when you balance your hormones. So, on that note, I hope to see you next time. And I hope you like the new name of the podcast. If you don't, I'm not changing it again. Okay.